The first time Claire heard the song, it came floating through the cracked window just past midnight. It was soft, almost soothing, except for the words. The melody had the lilt of a lullaby, but the lyrics were wrong, like a child humming a funeral dirge. Sleep, sleep, little flame. I know your name, I know your name. Claire sat up in bed, heart stuttering against her ribs. Her apartment was on the 4th floor, surrounded by city noise and bad insulation. She was used to hearing couples arguing, cars backfiring, and the occasional shout from the alley below. But this was different. The voice was too close. It wasn't coming from below, it was level with her window. She crept toward it slowly, bare feet silent on the hardwood floor. The blinds hung crooked, and through the narrow slat she saw nothing. Just darkness. The fire escape was empty. The street lamps below flickered as if uncertain. She waited, barely breathing. The song had stopped. The next morning, she convinced herself it was a dream. A nightmare brought on by too much wine and a true crime podcast playing while she dozed off. But as she left for work, her eyes were drawn to the graffiti scrawled across the stairwell wall in red paint, or what she hoped was paint. I know your name. She didn't call the police. What would she even say? That someone might have sung a creepy song outside her window and possibly vandalized the stairwell? The words could have been there for days. She hadn't taken the stairs in over a week. But the unease clung to her like damp clothes. At work, she jumped every time her phone buzzed. She double-checked the locks before bed. She stopped listening to podcasts. 3 nights later, she heard the song again. Hush, hush, little flame. I see your shame, I see your shame. This time, the voice was louder. Closer. Male. Low and strangely melodic, like someone trained in opera but drunk on something darker. Claire bolted upright, heart slamming in her throat. She threw back the curtains and stared into the night. There was no one there. But something had changed. On her window pane, drawn in the condensation from her breath, were 5 long finger streaks. From the outside. Claire stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the edge of her bed. Her breath caught, shallow and ragged, eyes locked on those streaks, 5 long trails carved down the fogged glass like claws dragging through mist. She didn't remember touching the window. And even if she had, they were on the outside. Her window didn't open fully, it was one of those old sliding types, painted shut by years of neglect and layers of white. The fire escape was the only way someone could have reached it, but she had checked that. Hadn't she? She snapped the light on. The room flooded with yellow, washing away the night's mystery, but not her fear. Every corner looked hostile now. The wardrobe creaked as the heat kicked on. The shadows moved unnaturally. She slept with the lights on. The next morning, she filed a maintenance request to have the fire escape checked, maybe even a lock installed on the window if possible. But the superintendent, a pale, stooped man named Mr. Dreely, just squinted at her like she was speaking another language. Fire escapes for safety, not security, he mumbled. Can't lock a safety exit. You wanna lock yourself in during a fire? Claire clenched her jaw. Then check the damn window. Someone's climbing up there. He gave her a long, unreadable stare, then scribbled something on a crumpled notepad. Whether he actually intended to do anything about it, she doubted. She spent the whole day glancing over her shoulder, her mind replaying the lyrics again and again, trying to make sense of them. Little Flame. What did that mean? Was it a nickname? A reference? That night, Claire pushed a chair against the window and placed a small stack of books on it. If the books fell, she'd know someone opened the window. At 2:41 a.m., she woke with a start. The room was cold. Too cold. The heater was on, she could hear its low groan, but the chill bit into her bones. The books were on the floor. Her heart sank as she reached for her phone with trembling fingers. No messages. No alerts. But just as she unlocked the screen, a notification blinked into existence. Bluetooth, connected, unknown device. She froze. Her hands trembled as she tapped the notification. Singer connected. Then the song started again, this time, from inside the apartment. Cry, cry, little flame. I stake my claim, I stake my claim. The voice echoed from her Bluetooth speaker. Claire lunged for the speaker, yanking its power cord from the wall. The song cut off instantly, but the silence that followed was worse, thicker, louder somehow. It pressed against her skull like invisible fingers. She stared down at the screen. The Bluetooth connection had vanished. Singer was no longer listed among known devices. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't a bad dream. Someone had hacked into her system. Or worse, been inside. Her stomach twisted as her eyes scanned the apartment. She grabbed the nearest object, a heavy glass candle holder, and crept from room to room. Living room. Kitchen. Closet. Bathroom. She flung the shower curtain open with a cry, ready to strike. Empty. She returned to the bedroom, adrenaline still hammering through her. She didn't sleep. She sat on the edge of her bed, clutching the candle holder like a weapon until the sun crawled up over the city and painted the buildings gold. That morning, she didn't go to work. She called in sick, locked every door and window, and spent hours changing passwords, checking security settings, resetting her speaker, her Wi-Fi, even factory resetting her phone. When she finally turned everything back on, her inbox lit up with new emails, mostly junk and marketing. But one message stood out. From unknown@nodress.net. Subject, a spark in the dark. Body. You can change your locks. You can change your name. But little flame, I'll find you all the same. Claire dropped her phone like it burned. The police were no help. She filed a report, described the messages, the speaker, the strange song, but without proof of forced entry or an identified suspect, they couldn't do much. Could be a hacker, could be a prank, the officer said with a shrug. Get a camera, keep your doors locked. Let us know if he shows up in person. She wanted to scream. But instead, she bought a motion-activated camera that same afternoon, setting it up to face her window. Then she blocked every crack of light in the apartment and tried to act like everything was normal. But as darkness settled over the city again, the anxiety grew. She couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of her every move being catalogued. At 3:08 a.m., her phone buzzed. Motion detected, front window. She tapped the alert with shaking hands and opened the camera feed. A figure stood on the fire escape. Tall. Thin. Face shadowed. Still as death. He was looking directly into the lens. Then, slowly, his lips parted. And he began to sing. Burn, burn, little flame. You fed the game, now take the blame. Claire dropped the phone. Her mouth went dry, her heart beating so violently it blurred her vision. The voice came through the speaker again, even though it had been reset. Even though Bluetooth was off. The feed was still playing on her screen, frozen on his face. Except his lips had stopped moving. But the song kept going. She scrambled for her phone again, trying to end the feed, shut off the camera, anything, but her screen wouldn't respond. It was locked, unresponsive, like the device itself was under someone else's control. The figure on the screen smiled. Then he lifted one hand and raised a single finger to his lips. The feed cut to static. Claire screamed. In the morning, the fire escape was empty. No fingerprints. No marks. No signs of entry. The camera was gone, completely removed, even the adhesive it had been mounted with was scrubbed clean. There was no sign anyone had ever been there. But her speaker still played static. Desperate, Claire called her older brother Matt, a software engineer who lived in Brooklyn. She told him everything, the song, the messages, the camera feed. To his credit, he didn't laugh. He came over that afternoon with a laptop, a backpack full of cables, and a scowl. "Someone's either stalking you the old-fashioned way," he said, setting up on her kitchen table, "or this is one hell of a sophisticated digital attack. Either way, it ends today." He spent hours scanning her devices, checking for malware, intercepting network signals. Claire hovered nearby, biting her nails down to the quick. By sundown, Matt sat back with a sigh. "Nothing's normal, but nothing's abnormal either. Your Wi-Fi has clean packets. Your speaker's firmware looks stock. If someone's controlling your devices, they're not doing it through traditional means." Claire folded her arms, fighting the cold slither of dread creeping down her spine. "So what does that mean?" He didn't answer right away. Just stared at the blank speaker on the table. "I don't know." That night, Claire insisted Matt stay over. He agreed, reluctantly, and they set up sleeping bags in the living room. By 11 p.m., he was snoring quietly. Claire wasn't asleep. At 2:06 a.m., the lights flickered. From the hallway, just outside the living room, she heard humming. The same melody. And then, her brother joined in. Claire froze, heart stammering. Matt's voice was soft, childlike in its cadence, echoing the lullaby with eerie precision. "Sleep, sleep, little flame. I know your name, I know your name." She turned slowly toward him. He lay on his side in the sleeping bag, eyes wide open, unfocused and glassy, his mouth moving in rhythm with the song. His voice was distant, as though coming from someone else. A puppet with strings too thin to see. "Matt?" she whispered. He didn't blink. Didn't acknowledge her. Just kept singing. "Cry, cry, little flame. I stake my claim, I stake my claim." Claire leaned in, gently touching his shoulder. He jerked violently. For a moment, his face contorted, mouth open too wide, jaw trembling, then he gasped like surfacing from deep underwater. His eyes locked onto hers, filled with terror. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. "You were singing it, Matt. Your eyes were open and you were singing it." He pushed himself upright, visibly shaken, running a hand down his face. "I didn't. I don't remember. I was dreaming." He was there. Claire's skin prickled. "Who?" "The man. Tall. In a dark coat. No face, just dark. And that song. He was whispering it in my ear." He shuddered. Claire wanted to cry. Scream. Run. But there was nowhere to go. Her home had become a trap, every wall echoing with the haunting lullaby. Even sleep wasn't safe anymore. She stood up and walked to the speaker. It was off. Unplugged. But she picked it up anyway and carried it to the sink. "What are you doing?" Matt asked. "I'm ending this." She turned the water on, shoved the speaker under the stream, and watched it hiss and spark until the plastic casing cracked. When she pulled it out, it was steaming. Broken. But behind her, in the silence that followed, Matt began to hum again. She turned slowly. He looked up at her. His eyes were his, this time, terrified, pleading. "I can't stop," he whispered. "He's in me." Claire's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" Matt clutched his head. "When I closed my eyes, he said your name." Claire stared at him. Then her phone buzzed again. "Unknown number, one new voicemail. She played it on speaker. And the voice, his voice, sang. Run, run, little flame. Too late for shame. I've learned your name. You said. Continue. Claire's fingers went numb. The voicemail ended with a soft chuckle, one that wasn't Matt's. One that didn't sound entirely human. Matt sat rigid on the couch, pale and sweating. His hands trembled as he pulled the sleeping bag up like it might shield him. Claire, he's inside the song. It's not just some psycho. It's like it opened something. A door. Claire gritted her teeth. That's impossible. I thought so too, but, he motioned to her phone. Did I leave you a voicemail while I was asleep? No. Did I know your name was going to be in it? No. But somehow, he does. It's like he's pulling pieces from us. Using us. Claire swallowed hard. What does he want? Matt looked up at her, eyes hollow. You. That night, they didn't sleep. Claire gathered every electronic device in the apartment, phones, tablets, speakers, laptops, and shoved them into a box. Matt helped her carry it to the dumpster outside. The city buzzed around them as if nothing was wrong. Somewhere, a car alarm chirped. A bus hissed to a stop. Life, normal and oblivious. But in her bones, Claire felt hunted. Back upstairs, she made a decision. I'm leaving. I'm not staying here another night. Matt looked at her like she was finally making sense. Good. I'll drive you to Mom's. She's out of town anyway, and the house is empty. Claire nodded, moving quickly now, shoving clothes into a backpack. Toothbrush. Wallet. Keys. She hesitated in the doorway of her bedroom, then turned back and grabbed the old photo on her nightstand. A picture of her and Matt at a carnival, laughing. Before everything turned cold. They reached the car just after dusk. The wind had picked up, carrying a strange scent, like burned wood and something sour underneath. Matt didn't mention it, but she saw the way his jaw tightened. As they pulled away, Claire looked up at her building. Every window was dark, except one. Her window. And silhouetted against it, tall and still, was the figure. As if watching them go. They reached the house in less than an hour. Claire hadn't been back in years. It smelled like lavender and old wood. Familiar. Safe. She collapsed onto the guest bed while Matt checked the locks. No music. No singing. Just silence. But at 3:13 a.m., Claire sat up in the dark. Not because of a sound, but because of its absence. The cicadas had gone quiet. The wind had stopped. And then, from inside the house, a whisper, right next to her ear. You left the flame behind.